This anime begins with a high school student named Takashi Komuro, who is daydreaming on the roof of the school building. It turned out that he was thinking about the girl he had liked since childhood. The girl who was his best friend had promised to marry Komuro when they were little. Komuro then looked gloomy remembering this. Then his friend named Saya Takagi came and immediately reprimanded Komuro, who was daydreaming. Takagi reminded Komuro not to skip class and daydream just because of a girl. She also said that it would be better for Komuro to study hard and prove to the girl he loves that he is successful. Hearing all of Takagi's words, Komuro remained silent and didn't respond. Takagi then decided to leave Komuro alone because he didn't seem to listen to her advice. While Komuro was still daydreaming, he saw a suspicious man in front of his school gate who turned out to be a zombie called them. Komuro felt that there was something strange about the man. Then, some of his school teachers approached the school gate to chase the boy away. However, when one of the teachers tried to push him away, the teacher was bitten. All the teachers who witnessed the incident were shocked and approached the teacher who was lying down. Shortly after the bite from the strange man, the teacher suddenly got up and started attacking everyone around him. Seeing this incident, Komuro immediately rushed down to find his best friend, Hisashi Igo, and the girl he liked, Rei Miyamoto. In the next scene, Komuro is seen in Rei's class with Hisashi. Komuro, who forced her to go out of the class, made her angry. The two of them fought until Rei uttered harsh words, making Komuro slap her in the face. Rei finally shut up and listened to Komuro's explanation. After that, Komuro, Rei, and Hisashi left the classroom and headed down the hall. There Komuro explained that there had been a murder at the school, then reminded them to be prepared before things got worse. At first, Rei doesn't believe all of Komuro's stories until she calls her father, a police commissioner. However, Rei could not contact her father due to interference on the telephone line. Finally, she believed all of Komuro's stories. The three of them then carried weapons just in case and planned to leave the school. A few minutes later, there was an announcement from the school over the loudspeaker that there had been a commotion at the school. The announcement was even more frightening because the announcer sounded like he was being attacked by something. Hearing the announcement, all the students panicked and ran out of the classroom to save themselves. The condition was getting out of control because all the students were fighting each other and cramming on the school stairs. Takagi, who also wants to save herself, invites her friend Hirano, who is crawling out of the room. The scene switches to the Komuro team, who refuses to leave the school through the stairs because of the chaotic situation. Hisashi suggested they head to the school's rooftop and take cover in the observatory. Arriving on the roof, it turns out that the principal named Yamada, who has been bitten by someone and turned into them, is there. Yamada then tried to attack them. Rei, who is a member of Sojutsu, attacks Yamada using the spear she carries, and she sticks the spear to Yamada's heart. However, Yamada is still alive and tries to reach Rei by biting the stick stuck in his body. Seeing that, Hisashi tried to keep Rei away from Yamada by locking his neck. Komuro warned Hisashi not to get too close to him as it was very dangerous. Hisashi, who was still trying to lock Yamada's neck, was finally bitten. At the same time, Komuro kills the principal by beating his head to pieces. On the school roof, Komuro, along with the injured Rei and Hisashi, saw several Black Hawk fighter planes pass by. They also saw the chaotic state of the city. While the conditions at school are shown, many students have turned into them and bite those who are still survive. Some people commit to ending their life by jumping from building windows because they are depressed by these conditions. Hisashi assumed that the conditions were like the plague in the movies. As there was no time left, the three rushed towards the observatory and fought them who had started arriving on the roof. After that, Hisashi looked pale and started coughing up blood. He remembers what happened in the movie after someone was bitten by them. Rei was in tears and couldn't believe what Hisashi had said. Since Hisashi knew what would happen to him, he asked to end his life because he didn't want to turn into them. Komuro was silent. Because Hisashi's condition got worse, he finally died. Rei couldn't believe that Hisashi had died, cried, and called Hisashi's name. Then, Hisashi, who had completely transformed into them, woke up and looked like he was about to attack Rei, who was near him. Komuro, who saw this, immediately attacked and killed Hisashi by hitting his head. Rei is angry with Komuro for killing Hisashi. She said she would rather be them than see Hisashi die. An annoyed Komuro replied that he would leave Rei alone on the roof. Hearing that, Rei apologized to Komuro and begged him not to be left behind. Finally, Komuro forgave Rei, then hugged her. In the next scene, Takagi and Hirano try to escape from them. Meanwhile, Komuro, who was still with Rei, thought about what he had done to Hisashi. Then, Rei asked Komuro to lend her the phone back because she wanted to call her father. Unfortunately, the phone suddenly disconnected and made her sad. The scene returns to Takagi and Hirano, who are hiding from them in the class hall. They argued about what was going on. Elsewhere, Shizuka-sensei, who is a nurse, is saved by Saiko Busujima from them attack. Saiko also helps relieve the suffering of one of the students who has been bitten by killing him before he turns into them. Back in the scene of Takagi and Hirano, The two of them were in a class with some equipment that had been collected earlier. Takagi finds out that Hirano is a military geek, so he asks him to make a weapon that can protect them from them attacks. With his abilities, Hirano managed to make a gun in a short time. When the Thims managed to break down the classroom door, Hirano shot them to death. At the same time, Komuro and Rei also managed to escape from them using a fire hose, and they were also worried about their respective families. After successfully killing them with a gun made by Hirano, Takagi also tried to experiment to discover the ability of them. From her observations, Takagi concluded that them were blind, and all their nerves had died. Them will only be attracted by the sounds around them. In the middle of the experiment, Hirano kept talking to Takagi, which made her angry, and she spoke quite loudly to Hirano without realizing that his voice made them surround them both. Hirano, with his weapon, tried to protect the frightened Takagi. Unfortunately, he ran out of nail bullets for his gun. Then, a them tries to attack Takagi, and she can only scream in fear. Meanwhile, Hirano also couldn't do anything because his bullets had run out. Fortunately, the Komuro and Saiko team heard Takagi's shout and rushed toward the source of the sound. The cornered Takagi then used a nearby electric drill to kill them. After that, help from the Komuro and Saiko teams came and killed the remaining them. In the next scene, the six of them then introduced themselves to each other. However, Takagi, who was still in shock from what he had just experienced, made her cry and scream. They all took shelter in a room and watched the news on television. It can be seen that a reporter is showing an emergency situation outside a chaotic school. It seems that the epidemic has spread all over the world. In the middle of the broadcast, suddenly, the television channel disappeared. Takagi thought it was a pandemic, and everyone in the room gave each other their opinion. Then, they decide to cooperate with each other and plan to get out of the school that has been filled with them. On the way to get out of school, they meet and help some survivors to fight them on the school steps. Unfortunately, with a large number of them downstairs near the exit, they stopped at the school stairs. Later, Takagi tells them that them is blind and only reacts to sound. Komuro, who couldn't believe what Takagi had just said, asked her to prove it directly. However, Takagi refused the request. Komuro, who was really curious, finally went downstairs to prove this, even though he was initially prevented by Rei, who would immediately chase after him. Saiko immediately prevented Rei from acting stupid. Komuro descended to the ground floor slowly so as not to make a sound. When he was in a crowd of several of them without anyone attacking him, he believed that them couldn't see him. To distract them, Komuro threw the nearby shoes at the locker. Them immediately ran towards the source of the sound. Meanwhile, Komuro opened the exit and his group carefully descended one by one. Unfortunately, a survivor named Soji, who they rescued, actually made a loud enough sound that all of them in the school immediately surrounded Komuro's group. Then, Komuro asked everyone to go straight to the bus that could take them out of the school. Komuro, Rei, Seiko, and Hirano, who had guns, were in the front position to pave the way for all the group members to get to the bus. However, Soji refuses to go with them because he doesn't want to leave his girlfriend, who has become them. Finally, he gave up and the Thims bid him, and Komuro's group headed for the bus. After all the group members boarded and the bus was about to leave, Komuro saw the other survivor group, and Sito-sensei, who is famous as a pervert teacher, called them for help. The survivors asked to join Komuro's group, but Rei warned Komuro not to accept the group. However, Komuro, who has a big heart, gives permission, so the group joins them. On the way, the manipulative Sito wants to be the leader of a group that causes discord. Shizuka-sensei, who was driving the bus, was finally annoyed and asked them to be quiet. However, the cunning Sito later stated that he was the group's leader. Rei, who can't stand Sito's behavior, decides to get off the bus, followed by Komuro, who is worried about her safety. While Komuro and Rei were still fighting, suddenly, a bus crashed into the tunnel and exploded. Due to this accident, Komuro and Rei were separated from the group and promised Saiko, who was trying to help, to meet at the police station at 7 o'clock. Finally, they separated because many burning them would attack them. Komuro, who then managed to get out of the tunnel, was suddenly attacked by them. Luckily, he survived because he wore a helmet and was helped by Rei. Komuro and Rei left the tunnel on a motorbike near them. The next scene shows a flashback where Komuro is daydreaming and watching the tragedy begin. Then, Komuro is seen watching the city that has been filled with them, then monologues if the city is currently a dead city. As a group of them seem to be approaching, Komuro and Rei continue their journey by motorbike. Elsewhere, the situation inside the bus carrying Saiko and Sito's group is stuck in a traffic jam. Saiko remembered the promise she had made to Komuro. Komuro and Rei are seen passing through a deserted city street and see a police car destroyed in an accident. Rei then took the initiative to take a weapon there. Fortunately, they found a handgun with its stock of ammo. From their journey until now, Rei began to change and accept reality more. Even she was willing to take a few bullets from them corpse. Komuro and Rei continued their journey with the weapons they found because several of them had followed. Finally, they arrived at the fuel station to refuel their motorbike. However, they didn't have the money to refuel, so Komuro and Rei argued. Komuro decided to take the money at the fuel station's mini-market, while Rei was still there. When Rei was alone, she felt someone was stalking her. Then, suddenly, an evil man took her hostage, and Rei shouted. Hearing Rei's shout, Komuro rushed out and saw that Rei had been taken hostage. The man wanted a motorbike and also Rei. Komuro kept his cool to not attract them's attention and refueled his motorbike. Quite annoyed with the man who kept threatening him, when he had the chance, Komuro shot the man who was holding Rei hostage. Then, Komuro and Rei continued to leave the man who was finally attacked by them. The following day, Komuro realizes he has killed someone but can't do anything else because he wants to survive. Another scene shows the government's performance in dealing with the them outbreak. Seen a female sniper, Shizuka-sensei's friend, who was cleaning the airport area. While on the bus, Sito continued to make speeches. Outside the bus, a high crime rate and a lot of them attacks can be seen. Under these conditions, Takagi began to think about determining the next step. Because there is a need for a community to survive an increasingly chaotic condition, Takagi and Saeko agree not to follow Sito. Moreover, Saeko remembers the promise she made to Komuro to meet again. Saeko and Takagi decided to get off the bus and continue the journey on foot. After all, traveling by bus has become less effective due to traffic jams. Sito, who knows Saeko's plan, tries to prevent it, but Hirano shoots him until he is frightened. As it turned out, Hirano had not liked his teacher for a long time. Finally, Saeko, Takagi, Shizuka-sensei and Hirano parted ways with Sito's group, making Sito furious. Turning to Komuro and Rei's scene, they both saw some people who had lost their logic attacking others. Then, as they continued their journey, Komuro and Rei heard Saeko's group being pushed around by them. The two of them helped Saeko's group and managed to clear the area. Since the night was coming, Shizuka-sensei then offered to rest in her friend's apartment, and they all agreed. After arriving at the apartment, all the women took a shower. Meanwhile, Komuro and Hirano looked for food in the cupboard. After opening the cupboard, they were surprised because there was a row of weapons. They were both amazed by Shizuka-sensei's friend. Then, Komuro and Hirano watched the situation outside the apartment, and Komuro asked Hirano to turn on the television. As it turned out, a serious conflict occurred on the bridge because of the demonstration. At its peak, the police commissioner shot the man leading the demonstration. In the next scene, it can be seen that all the women have finished bathing and look exhausted. Komuro then carried Shizuka-sensei to her room, and at the same time, he saw Rei looking cute, talking in front of him. When Komuro was about to take the food, he also saw Saeko wearing quite revealing clothes. The closeness between the two began. Then, there is a scene that shows Rei talking about Hisashi and comparing him to Komuro. Hearing this, Komuro looked angry at Rei, but she tried to calm him down. Meanwhile, outside the apartment, the them began to arrive because of a dog's howl. While on the bridge, the police rent an asphalt machine to kill the them. Due to increasingly chaotic conditions, the police commissioner decided to end his life. The chaos in the city made the number of them more and more. Komuro and Hirano, who were lurking from the apartment, also saw how the them attacked people. Saeko reminded them to be careful and not to act rashly. Later, Komuro saw a father who died after protecting his daughter named Alice Marisato. Hirano, who knew Komuro wanted to help the little girl, immediately helped him. Finally, Komuro goes on his motorbike to help Alice, and thankfully, by cooperating with Hirano, Alice can be saved. Moving on to the next scene, Saeko, Rei, Takagi, and Shizuka are preparing a way to get out of the situation. They prepare the car and also the food. Meanwhile, Komuro was seen walking on the parapet while carrying Alice towards Shizuka-sensei's friend's apartment. Underneath, there are many of them that are crammed into. After all the preparations were complete, finally Seiko and the other members came to help Komuro. They tried to open up space for Komuro to jump into the car, and they all left. In another scene, a United States president looks annoyed because many of them are on the Air Force plane. This led the president to order his people to give up their nukes. The scene then back to Komuro. On the following day, Komuro and the team cross the river and stop to change their clothes. All members are also equipped with weapons. Hirano told them how to use the weapons. After that, they all decided to go to the Takagi residence in the Higashisaka area to find new hope. On the way, they all seemed cheerful, including Rei and Komuro, who enjoyed the trip without them. Not long after the silence, many of them seemed to block their way, and even the number of them increased as the car got closer to the Higashisaka area. Unfortunately, they had an accident because a wall of wire blocked the place, which made Rei, who was on the roof, fell down. Seeing this, Kimura tried to help Rei by shooting them who tried to approach. However, his shots were always missed until Hirano told him how to shoot properly. Saeko, Takagi, and Alice also helped kill them. Not only that, Rei, who had a gun, didn't stay still either. When Komuro and Rei are cornered, Zack, a dog that Komuro brought while saving Alice, tries to distract them. Seeing this, Saeko and Komuro finally tried to distract them away. Unfortunately, the diversion was unsuccessful because many of them were still approaching. Even Alice, starting to despair, cried and asked Hirano to cross because he reminded her of her father. When they were all desperate, luckily, Takage's mother, Yuriko, saved them. However, Komuro and Saeko, who were previously distracted, were still caught in the middle of them and tried to find another way using air hover. They both used it and fled into the middle of the river away from them. Saeko also had to change her clothes because they were wet after they fled into the middle of the river. Seeing Saeko changing her clothes, Komuro looked embarrassed. At night, Komuro and Saeko tried to lure them into the fountain area. After them arrived, Saeko started killing them. However, she stopped when she came face to face with the little boy them. Luckily, Komuro came to save Saeko and they went to hide in a temple. There, they exchanged stories with each other. Komuro is shocked after hearing the story of Saeko's past, which turns out that she was often almost abused, but she managed to fight back. That's why Saeko enjoyed it so much when she killed people before the them plague. Hearing Saeko's story, Komuro tried to calm her down, and they made love until Saeko gave up her virginity. On the following day, when they were about to continue their journey, many of them had come to the temple. Saeko, who is still holding back, gets encouragement from Komuro so they can get past to them. On the way back to her group, Saeko asks Komuro to take responsibility for his actions. Komuro said yes, and they finally arrived at Takage's house. At Takage's house, they all start living a new life. However, when Rei was still in the healing process to Hirano, who was still busy assembling weapons, Takage knew what would happen in the future and insisted on her mother's idea. Komuro, who accidentally runs into Yuriko, asks her to calm down Takage. The scene switched as everyone gathered to discuss whether they would join or part with the large group. At that time, Takage also vented her anger toward her family. Komuro, who is annoyed with Takage, gets angry and asks her to be grateful that her parents are still alive. Takage was silent, hearing Komuro's words. Takage's father demonstrates how to kill them at the refugee camp. He said if anyone was bitten by them, they would end up like monsters in bars. After that, Takage's father slashed the head of them. In another scene, Hirano is seen angry at Takage when he is about to give his opinion. Then he leaves, followed by Komuro and Alice. Seeing the angry Hirano, the young Alice asked Komuro if he had had a fight with Hirano. Hearing Alice's question, Komuro realized that he shouldn't be lazing around there because the world had changed. In the next scene, Takage is seen talking to Saeko. Then, the scene switches when Hirano's weapons are about to be confiscated by Takage's father. Hirano insisted he didn't want to give up the weapons because they were priceless. Later, Takage's father asked who Hirano would protect with that weapon. Komuro, who had just arrived, immediately replied that the weapon had protected his daughter. Then, everyone supported Hirano, and Takage's father finally recognized Komuro's group. Elsewhere, Sito's group is getting stronger, and there is a possibility that his group will go to Takage's house. Sometime later, Komuro, Takage, and Hirano tell the residents that them is a corpse. However, the residents do not believe in them both. An annoyed Takage then asked Komuro to be the only leader, which was agreed upon by Hirano. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Saeko gets a sword from Takage's father. Back to Komuro's scene again. He was still confused about Takage's request to be the group leader. Rei then advises Komuro if he is a brave man and is suitable to be a leader. Then, the scene changed when Sito arrived at Takage's house. On the other hand, when Komuro's group asked permission to look for their parents and saw Sito's group there, Rei was angry because it turned out that Sito's father, who was a politician, had destroyed her father. Likewise, Rei's education has been destroyed by Sito. Rei finally met Sito, and Sito, who saw Rei angry, tried to calm her down. Suddenly, Takage's father appears and says Rei can kill Sito if she wants to. Rei, who is still indecisive, finally doesn't kill Sito. After that, Sito was expelled from Takage's residence. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, precisely in the US, the President of the United States has launched a nuclear missile that caused all the power grids in the world to be cut off. The people in outer space who saw this could only give up. The nuclear missile launch impacted the telephone network being cut off so that Shizuka-sensei could not contact her friend. All electronics are off. Even Sito had an accident because his electric vehicle died. This also makes many of them go to Takage's residence. Due to the worsening condition, Takage's parents then entrusted their daughter to Komuro and Hirano. Komuro's group was expelled from Takage's residence because the place was no longer safe. Even Takage was slapped by her mother to stay strong. In the next scene, it is seen that Komuro's group has climbed into a modified vehicle. From inside the car, Takage saw how her parents sacrificed their lives for their daughter's safety. In the end, Takage was strengthened by Hirano. The anime ends with Komuro's group vehicle traveling through the night and the thems. The moral of this anime is that parents will always be willing to sacrifice for the happiness of their children. Even parents are willing to sacrifice their lives so their children can get a better life.